Hey, what's up? Coach Myers here. Welcome to my kitchen. And today's another episode of Muscle Meals. And I'm going to solve one of your problems you have today. The problem is that leftover food in the refrigerator that you don't know what to do with, or you're tired of eating. You've been eating the same chicken breast for the last 3 days. I'm going to teach you how to make what I call scrambled mess. Now, as you can guess, this does involve scrambled eggs, but what we're going to do is we're going to take whatever leftovers you have laying around, we're going to fry them up in some olive oil, add the eggs over top, scramble them. Now here's the keys. You got to have 3 ingredients. You got to have eggs, you got to have some type of vegetables, and you got to have some type of meat. I've even made this before with eggs and leftover steak and broccoli. Now today what I'm going to use is I'm going to use some chicken sausage. So I guess it's not technically leftover, but it is fully cooked. Some kale, some mushrooms, some onion, a hot pepper. We'll top it off with some avocado at the end. We got 4 eggs that we're going to scramble up. Alright, first thing we gotta do is chop up these vegetables and get to it. Now we're only gonna use about 1/4 of an onion. And here's kind of the key, you gotta cut them long ways. Oh, slipped out of there. Long ways like that. Once you get them sliced all the way, then we're gonna turn them. And then, boom. Now we got them perfectly diced, nice and uniform shape. I had a roommate in college, Jeremy Liggett, shout out to Lig. One time I saw him chopping onions and I almost had a heart attack. He would slice it this way, slice it that way, just going on like this. It took him 10 minutes to chop a damn onion, all right? There was no structure to it. Liggett, I hope you're still following my advice and you're doing nice and symmetrical on your chops now. Now we got some kale, and the kale, you know, very fibrous, very hard. So if you just put that in there and saute it like that, it's not gonna, the texture is just gonna kind of, you're not gonna like it, put it that way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of bunch it up. So I got it kind of in a big lump there, and then I'm gonna slice it nice and thin so it's like little ribbons of kale. So you look at that there now, like nice and thin pieces. That'll fry up real good, and it'll kind of lose some of that, you know, hard texture. Oh, this couple pieces there. We're gonna throw in a clove of garlic. Got to get that outer skin off of it there. Always use the flat side of your knife to kind of hit it to loosen it up. Chop off that bottom part, and then just nice and thin. Boom. Hands are stinking like garlic already. There we go. Now I got some portobellos. I always chop off that bottom part. You know, that's what, you know, that's the part right there that's in contact with, you know, been in contact with the dirt, and it's just always a little bit nasty. You can use it if you want. I choose to take it off. It doesn't really matter either way. Now the mushrooms cook a little bit faster than other stuff. You can usually tell by how soft something is. The softer it is, you know, the quicker it's going to cook. So as compared to an onion or even a pepper, it's going to cook a little bit faster. So I'm going to leave them a little bit thicker slices. And these are portobellos, but you can use any type of mushroom. And like I said, don't be afraid to, you know, get creative. If you got leftover green beans, if you got, you know, asparagus you can chop up. Whatever you got laying around, you can throw in it. That's what we call a scrambled mess. I got, you know, some of the last chili peppers from my garden this summer. I'm starting to dry some of them out to make a seasoning, but you see how it's all kind of wrinkled. We can still use it in this. Right, there we go. I'm gonna add a little bit of cracked pepper and salt to the eggs. Kind of give each yolk a little rogery right there, and then we scramble them up. Now the sausage, like I said, it already comes fully cooked, so we'll just kind of pretend it's leftovers. I'm just gonna slice it up into little wheels. And if you had, you know, if you're using chicken breast from this, you would want to just cut it into chunks, just kind of dice it up. If you're using a leftover steak, I always kind of shave it into strips. And you're gonna kind of set that aside, because since it's already cooked, it'll be the last thing that you throw in before the eggs. Now again, we're gonna start with the vegetable that takes the longest, which is the onion. The onion's going first, and we'll kind of go in descending order. Onions, then kale, then the hot pepper and garlic, then the mushroom. So think of it in times of how long it takes each thing to cook. You always want to, when you're sauteing vegetables, you never add them all in at once. You start with whatever's the hardest, what's gonna take the longest to cook, and in that case, it's the onion. Set that on medium high. Some olive oil in there. Let that heat up for a minute or two. Okay, the oil's starting to get hot. I'm gonna add our first vegetable, which is the onion. I'm gonna move it around. Let it get black, kind of blackened up a little bit before I add anything else. I'd say maybe, if I had to put a time on it, I'd say like 2 to 4 minutes with just the onion in there, and then we'll start adding other stuff. Now, you may remember this from an earlier episode, but maybe you missed it. This is very important. How do I slice this avocado without cutting all the way through the peel, chopping my fingers off? I take my blade and I turn it around. I'm going to use the back side of the blade, which obviously is not sharp, and I'm going to cut my slices like that. So there we go. It's nice and sliced up, but still within the peel, so it's easy to handle, and that's what we're going to top the scrambled mess with. Now it looks like the onions, not quite done all the way, but they're done enough. I like to move them over to the side for a second. And now I'm gonna add some of the other vegetables. We'll go ahead and add those hot peppers in there. And where's my garlic at? Looks like it's hiding underneath the mushrooms. Oh yeah, I can smell those hot peppers already. Once I get those in there, I'm going to add the kale next. Try to spread the kale out a little bit so it can kind of get it to cook down a little. And once it looks like it's starting to cook down and shrink, that's when I'll add the mushrooms and I'll move all this stuff over to the side. We got our portobellos. Now the thing with these portobellos, if I just leave them in a bunch like that, it's going to take them forever to cook. So I try to spread them out and try to get a flat surface, down there in contact with the cast iron. You don't want them stacked up. And then once they've cooked like that for a minute or two, I'll flip them over. And then at that point, I'll mix all the vegetables together and kind of stir fry it all together for a few minutes before we add the meat and then the eggs after that. It's kind of the tedious part. You gotta make sure you get each one of these portobellos flipped here. You can see they're starting to brown up on the other side a little. And you'll notice whenever you're sauteing vegetables, some of the vegetables, especially mushrooms, will start to absorb some of the oil. So that's why you don't want it to dry up. Add a little bit more oil about halfway through if you need to. You don't want them to burn. Okay, the veggies are more or less done. I'm gonna kind of move them over to the side. And also what I do right now, instead of keeping the pan in the middle, I'm gonna move it off center a little bit so the flame is not below the vegetables, it's more over this part. Now we're gonna add our chicken sausage. And look what I found here. Last night was Taco Tuesday. We got some leftover taco meat. We're gonna throw that in there. This is, there's no rules to scrambled mess. Whatever you want to throw in, you throw it in. Meat, veggies, eggs, go to town with it. So we're gonna kind of that meat is already cooked, the sauce is already cooked. We need to brown it up, heat it up a little bit. Once it's browned a little, then we'll mix it with the vegetables and it's time to throw the eggs in. All right, so once your meat is brown, you want to mix everything back together kind of as evenly as you can. And look what we got there. We got a scrambled mess. Now here comes the eggs. So make sure it's mixed up good. Try to pour it over pretty evenly. Now, one of the keys is you can see there's some areas where the egg didn't land very thick. I'm gonna kind of move it around, scrape the bottom a little bit, mix everything up. If I have to, and kind of tilt it around. So it looks like I ended up with a lot more kale at one end than the other. Now, one of the other things, because there's so much food in this pan, the egg's so thick, if I just let it cook like this, by the time it cooks all the way through, the bottom is going to be burnt. So what you want to do, turn your heat down to low, take a lid, cover it up, and let it cook for a few minutes like that, so that way it kind of steams through the eggs, cooks a little faster. So after it's been covered for a few minutes, I always check it. As you can notice, it's starting to cook through, but it's still pretty soft on the top. So what you want to do is really ensure that the bottom doesn't burn. You're going to try to flip this. You see, look, the bottom's cooked all the way through. So if we left it like that for another, 3 or 4 minutes, you would definitely end up with it, sticking to the pan or a little black on the side. Now I try to just flip this in sections. If you try to flip the whole thing, it's just going to fall apart. We're not making a pretty omelet here. This is a scrambled mess. There we go. Cover it back up, let it go a couple more minutes, and we're gonna be good to eat. All right, there we go. Good all-purpose breakfast, but of course you can eat this any time of the day. Scrambled mess. Take care of those leftovers, chop them up with some veggies, throw some eggs on it. Really versatile, you can do it for any time of the day. Make sure to go to maxeffortmuscle.com for all your supplement needs, all your training needs. Learn how to cook, learn how to live, get your mind right.